We're going to discuss the roadmap until today, and I will do a brief summary. Especially, you'll see here we chose 2009 forward. At the present time, NAV has a new version called NAV 2017. There's still a material install base in NAV 2009, which is no longer supported by Microsoft. I'm going to repeat this. 2009 is no longer supported by Microsoft. So Microsoft supports the current version. Let me put the pen here. Let me see how this works, which is NAV 2017. And Jenny and or operations, make sure we're recording this. They support the current version, which is out, and the past version for what we call, let's call this the main upgrade or main support, which includes, when I say upgrade, it includes service packs, right? So there's service packs that Microsoft or releases R2, the famous R2 that Microsoft releases within a version. So 2016 will not have any more releases, ours, but Microsoft is still producing some functionality, and they are producing bug fixes, some service packs. NAV 2017 will have releases and also service packs and bug fixes. So this is what Microsoft, let's say, is proactively supporting at this time. NAV 2015, and let me NAV 2015 here, and NAV 2013, they're still being supported by Microsoft in what I call a reactive support. So there's no service packs, no bug fixes. You know, you can do what-if questions, functionality questions, a little bit of support here, but it doesn't have those fixes, newer functionality. Something that we can definitely see in this roadmap is Microsoft keeps on adding more integration or additional functionality on the reporting, Power BI, Office 365, right, outside of the regular functionality. So we'll dig in a little bit deeper in the roadmap and the transition, but instead of doing from the NAV perspective, we're also going to do it in a somewhat holistic perspective, and we'll show it from the SSRS side and the Power BI side. And I know I said it, but and free. Let's change our PowerPoint now. So if we're to divide the reporting, I would divide it under within NAV and outside of NAV. What does within NAV means? It means source code. It means it's written within the software. What's outside of NAV is that the product is also standalone, that it can use other data sources. So within NAV, you can only use NAV data sources. Outside of NAV, you can use outside data sources. Within NAV, Microsoft only uses the R&D and most of what you pay on a yearly maintenance to develop this. Outside of NAV means Microsoft uses some of what you pay in your yearly maintenance for the R&D here. It also means it has connectors to NAV, so it's fully integrated. It doesn't mean. The exception is Jet Reports, which is a third party. But specifically, I'm talking about Power BI and Excel reports. Although analysis reports or SSRS is kind of like a hybrid. It's within NAV, but it's also outside of NAV, certain functionality. So even though we're doing this separation here, as you're seeing in this slide, it's not, you know, let's say there's not a Chinese wall, or it's not black or white. So within NAV, by the way, I do want to say we're we took an initiative and we're trying to do something for you all. So I'm not a big fan of having a lot of text and PowerPoints, but in a presentation, even though we're recording this and you can go back, you know, sometimes you may forget things, or there's a lot of text and a presenter, which in this case is myself, and I know we have Sansil here also on the line, and Adolfo is on vacation. Adolfo is our Power BI guru. He also does part of this training, but he's again on vacation, and we are going to have another session on this training next month, and Adolfo will be in that session. Or again, you can contact us, like I mentioned at the beginning of the training, and we can do a one-on-one session with Adolfo or with Sunseal. So coming back, there's a lot of text in these PowerPoints. The reason why is we started out as a 10-slide presentation. I think it's up to 80 slides. Don't worry, we're not going to discuss all 80 slides here. But what happened is, you know, we said, hey, let's put a lot of text so people can read it later, or they can forward it to a colleague who was not in the training. So I don't want to say this evolved into a brochure, or it evolved to a manual or a fact sheet, but I'd say more it's evolving in the process to a white paper. And the other thing I'm going to tell you, this is going to be a living and breathing document, so we will be updating it. This is version 1. It does need a little bit more TLC, tender loving care, you know, with certain graphics, the ordering, etc. So at the end of the day, I think the evolution and our new vision is, aside of being living and breathing, that, you know, as Microsoft has so much R&D and so many releases in Power BI, SQL reporting services, in Office, and Dynamics NAV, Azure, Dynamics 365, right? It definitely gets confusing, and in such an aggressive and quick manner, which it's also payoff for everybody here because you're paying maintenance and R&D. So if you're paying maintenance and R&D on a product, you might as well get constant improvements to your product. So I mean, it's an investment. So with that said, you will see a lot of text. I will be jumping through a lot of slides because there's no way we can do 60, 80 pages of PowerPoints in this allotted amount of time. And again, we decided to add more detail than, you know, let's say something we could have done in one PowerPoint with 5 bullets. We decided to do in 5 different PowerPoints, but provide more details so you can later read it or forward it to one of your colleagues. So again, we're talking about within. You have the Dynamics NAV report writer. There are some material differences in report writing that came about in version 2016 that were not in previous versions. So a lot of the customers who migrated or implemented NAV 2015, we did see some additional, let's say, sophistication and or complexities, right? So you have your out-of-the-box reports. When I mention reports in NAV, and you know, this is the most basic tool in NAV, you know, I'm mentioning some financial reports, operational reports, little analysis reports. They're typically out of the box. You're able to customize it, but with time, there are other tools that are better to customize reports than with the report writer. And again, the Dynamics NAV report writer uses data sources within NAV versus Power BI, SQL reporting services, for example, that you can bring in data sources from other systems that are, you know, not Microsoft, for example, or other systems that you may have that run on a Microsoft platform. Let's say a customer service system, let's say manufacturing or laboratory system, or a little transportation management system that you built. With SSRS and Power BI, you have more flexibility to bring in those data sources into one report. The other thing is, as technology and times are evolving also with this whole social media and what you refer to artificial intelligence, AI. So you're hearing me mention artificial intelligence during this presentation. Guess what? Artificial intelligence is just like mentioning the word cloud. What is cloud? Is it new? No way. Cloud has been around since the late 1990s. It was referred to as ASP, became very popular in the year 2000 with the evolution or the maturity that started going around with internet and worldwide providers and the expansion of broadband. It was also called shared services when it was internal. It was called SaaS, software as a service, at a given time. It was called hosting at another time. So, I mean, there's so many names for cloud, and I think everybody just says cloud on a generic way. So AI, artificial intelligence, is the same way. So what we're seeing here is the beginning of AI, or Microsoft's AI, being brought into what we call dynamics. So historically, what I've known to be AI is a word called algorithms, advanced programming, very advanced data mining, analysis, business intelligence. So it's just further evolution of a lot of these terms that we've used in the past, right? You know, an algorithm and a program sometimes recommends more optimal solutions, or recommends more optimal planning for an organization. Now it's not being called, it's called being AI. So, you know, before an algorithm for demand planning, for example, used to be that, you know, you take a look at 8, 10, 12, 20 formulas, algorithms that were written by scientists or mathematicians or very bright people. And then based on all these algorithms, a system would tell you, well, based on what you sold, how many orders you have open, you know, ABC criteria, and you know, and certain market knowledge, you should buy 5 instead of 3. Or this year you should buy 7 instead of 5, right? So AI is that, plus AI, what it's doing, it's going to external sources, let's say weather.com. It can go to other sources, let's say studies or website from, let's say, an industry type of association, let's say NRF, National Retail Federation, right? That they, you know, that they may have some stats on the economy, and it's also going to these outside sources and bringing in information to then churn out and add that to our algorithms, and then churn out something more advanced, right? So nowadays we can do that. So if you're a retailer and it rains today, well, guess what? Typically, when it rains in a day, you sell less in retail or in hospitality and restaurants. So if you know, you have all these formulas and algorithms, plus you can go out and know what the weather of the day is going to be. You can even do planning on a daily basis. Hint, hint. There's a reason why IBM bought weather.com. It's to feed information into their artificial intelligence AI called Watson. So again, it's, you know, it's just bringing funky names into a scenario where technology and the internet is advancing. The cloud, somebody explained to me, you know, what's Dynamics 365. And I really like their explanations. By the way, non-Microsoft person, it's a peer, a good friend of mine for many years. And he says, Hector, Dynamics 365 or SAP hosting or Oracle Cloud, you know, all that is, it's a wide area network, a WAN. From the vendor, the manufacturer, and all they're doing is they're sharing their network with other people and their internal resources who run that network. So, I mean, you have now Microsoft sharing Dynamics in their network to their customers and charging for that. So, you know, a lot of times we get so involved with these marketing terms, right? That becomes a black hole to categorize everything we don't understand. So why am I bringing this? Why am I spending the time discussing this? It's for you to start having the vision. So when you invest in a report that's not out of the box, you are spending money. You're spending money with Optimus, with Microsoft, with another firm. When you buy a third party reporting solution, you're spending additional money of something you already may have in-house. So one of the things I'm telling customers right now, AI, artificial intelligence, is here, which is nothing more than Microsoft putting steroids in SQL reporting services in their data center called Azure and Dynamics, and then starting to bring in more algorithms and advanced report and planning into your reporting and recommendations into your reporting. So if you start reporting in static reports like within the ERP and spending money doing that now, what's going to happen 2-3 years from now in the next Microsoft version? Guess what? There's going to be, let's say, demand planning, demand purchasing, manufacturing reports that are coming out that use both internal data sources and external ones, such as weather. The example I gave, weather, you're not going to be able to use that, and then you're going to have to redo your reports that you did in a static within environment into these newer reports like Power BI, like SSRS, which have the technology and are being prepared for that artificial intelligence world. So this training is not only, or this workshop is not only about, you know, what's in each category, that within the what each one does. It's also about instilling some vision and understanding in all of you on how Microsoft's roadmap, like we just covered now, in your case, NAV, and how the industry and the AI and all these other products, I mean, Google just launched AI also. Apple has been announcing some things in AI, and now September, I think the 12th or the 18th is a Microsoft event, and you know, there's supposed to be some surprises around artificial intelligence. I mean, don't tell me who's doing artificial intelligence right now. Tell me who's not. So are you going to develop reports, is my first question out of this, that are not out of the box in a tool that's not AI or algorithm or BI ready or friendly, or are you going to do it in something else? So reporting now is becoming more complex. We will be talking about, you know, operational reports versus financial ones now, interim, future. So we'll do the best here, right? But at the end of the day, as I started the training, this is personal. A lot of people are in different versions. Some people run manufacturing, some people are implementing manufacturing, et cetera, right? So we did mention out of the box, I don't know, I'm not sure, but I will remind you, when we talk about reports, we're also talking about forms. So forms are invoices, statements, etc. One of the very important things about forms is we're becoming very graphical society and economy. Social media, how pretty my website is, how many videos, et cetera, your documents, your invoices, your statements, etc. That's also like a business card, right? It's like your web page. It's a document, and it represents your brand. So historically, these reports that are within NAV, they've all been, and GP and overall dynamics, you know, they've been pretty ugly. Let's put it that way. We have cheaper systems like a QuickBooks, a Peachtree, that are really coming out. You know, sometimes I take a look at a GP invoice of a big customer, and I take a look at a QuickBooks invoice, and I'm like, wow, you know, the QuickBooks one is so much prettier. What do you think happens with a customer, right? It's like when we go to a restaurant and we eat, we also eat with our eyes. So, you know, one of the things is the reports, spending time developing, let's say, branding or attractiveness into an invoice or a customer facing or supply facing document, a lot of times it's better to do it and other tools that are already within NAV. And hint, there's a forms library in SSRS that's a lot more graphical and user-friendly. I bet most of you didn't know that there's other report libraries already in NAV that you can use for a lot of this. So continuing, we also know that NAV has out of the box, and I'm still in the reports within. What you're seeing right now in this image, this is not Power BI, this is not SQL reporting services, this is what we're seeing right now is regular NAV reporting. Something very important about charts and KPIs, which are out of the box. Some of you that are coming out, I know there's at least 2 of you here that are in 2009 implementing a newer version of NAV. And basically you get this pretty much out of the box. And it's also role-based. Role-based, what's a role? Accounts receivable person has a role within security. The controller has additional security in a different role, and he's going to be able to see a lot more than what you want an accounts receivable person to do. If your accounts receivable person only does accounts receivable, and that's the role, then you may want to put security that they can only see their graphs and KPIs or what they do. So these are pretty easy to install. When I say install, it's really turn on. It's like a light switch. It's already in NAV. You turn it on. They're pretty user friendly, so you can add some of these tiles. So what do I refer to as tiles? So I'm going to use my pen here. These are little tiles. This is live information coming from Dynamics NAV. So as a day goes by, let's say accounts receivable, aging changes, as a payment comes in, this changing. So these are live tiles. There's no programming that you or your consultants have to do. It's just in the implementation, it's more of a setup. And you can also get trained, so you can add and you can take away tiles. So now talking R&D and what you spend on a yearly basis on your maintenance. Microsoft, year over year, they keep on adding more tiles into this. So it's good KPIs. It helps maintain your employees focused. It's a good, you're seeing here red, right, up here. Let me change my pen for a second. So here you see the color red, here green, here yellow. So it's also interactive in the sense that if a KPI, let's say aging dates, you're okay, customers are paying fine, cash flow is good, blah, 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 it's going to be green. Based on parameters and rules that you set up. And again, these rules are not programming. They're pretty easy to set up, guys. The other thing, as you see in red could be cash flow balance. So if you say, hey, my cash flow is negative or under 20 or under 30, whatever your currency may be, it gets red. So that helps with visualization. It helps the user or the manager or the owner of the company also lock in. So personally, when I get as CEO, managing director of Optimus, when I get into the morning, the first thing I want to do as a director is manage exceptions. If something's running fine and it's green, I'll take a look at it later. I don't care, but I want to see why something's red in the morning, right? So this helps also with priorities. The other item that you're going to see here, and I'm using now Spotlight, so this little red dot is me, is you also get graphs. So it does provide information in a summary way. You can choose different graphs to project this. It's not programming. It's just going into a menu and saying, hey, instead of a pie chart, I want a line graph or something like that, right? So, you know, it's a pretty simple tool, and your users and your roles each can have their own visualization. So again, this is within. It's for free. It's in there. No programming. User friendly would be what I would say with this. So Now moving forward to the next slide. You also have what Microsoft calls queues or APIs. Let's call this business metrics, key performance indicators, but there's business metrics. Guess what? You can also drill down, and some of these are also interactive. This is for free. Let me repeat it. Free. And it's an app. You go to the Apple Store or you go to the Android Store and you download. Unfortunately, Microsoft, well, I don't know if it's unfortunately or what, Microsoft stopped producing cell phones, right? And the Windows mobile platform really didn't take off. So Microsoft did add an option of Android and iPhone. So Microsoft is now playing nice with the competition. The competition is playing nice with Microsoft. Last year, when there was one of these big launches, Apple brought in one of Microsoft's executives and they made available Office for iOS. So, I mean, people are starting to play nice. They know that consumers dictate. You can't force technology on consumer. The best you can do is provide value and win them over. So this is an app that brings information live from Navision. You do need security. Your IT department does need to provide certain parameters. It's not that they download an app from the iPhone and Android and they're going to automatically be taking a look at this. There's a little bit setup. But yeah, I mean, you pretty much get this out of the box after downloading that application. Table builder, I'm not going to spend any time in here. So we talked about within. Something else within with SQL reporting services that I also mentioned about the forms is within the roadmap, and I didn't go that much into detail at the beginning, is Microsoft's putting a lot more money in SSRS, SQL reporting services, and in Power BI Dynamics NAV reports. What does that mean for you? That means that if a new version comes out, NAV 2020, and there's 10 reports within out of NAV Report Writer, and there's 10 Power BI and 10 SSRS, well, in 2020, you're going to get 11 of Report Writer reports, and you're probably going to get 20 and 20 out of each. So that's another detail that you need to consider before, let's say, developing or doing custom reports or NAV Report Writer. And I'm going to do it on a tool that's going to stay static, or Microsoft may eliminate some of these Report Writer reports, which, let's say now I do a report and Report Writer 2020. 2020, Microsoft may say, you know what, we're not going to give you 5. Why? Because now we're going to give you 30 and 30. Microsoft has all the rights to do this as an FYI. It has happened before. I'll repeat myself. Has happened before with other ERPs. So even if you decide to do a report in NAV Report Writer, you need to understand that the base of that report may not be available in a future version. So part of my responsibilities with all of you here is be transparent. I'm not talking negatively about Microsoft, right? But I'm not going to sugarcoat it either. I have to be very factual. We have to be very open and transparent with you guys. So I'm giving you the risk and the possibility. So when you sit down, you make appropriate decisions. And again, don't take this wrong. If you get mad or you get frustrated, oh, they're taking away my reports. On the flip side, you're getting artificial intelligence type of reporting capabilities. You're getting, let's say reports and KPIs you can run 24/7 on any device, on almost any operating system, and a lot of that you're getting for free. So there is a trade-off, and I know change sometimes is hard for all of us. So outside of NAV, this is where it gets pretty and it gets cool. First thing, you're not going to see Power BI here because we love Power BI so much that we have a separate slide for that. So we're going to be going through this. We're going to discussing it. Jet Reports is third party. There's also BI 360 that you can also use. We have Management Reporter, and we have SSRS. SSRS is for free with SQL, and Dynamics NAV Management Reporter is also included for free. And I will be discussing these when, how, and when. And then Power BI reports and how all of these are intertwining, and then you're going to have hybrid environments. If you ask Optimus, what tool should we use? We have to say, what tools do you need to use, right? And it comes down to the functionality in NAV you're using, how advanced you are, what you want to do with mobile technology and tablets and all of that. Are you going to take your business process and include your customers and your suppliers in a particular business process where they're able to provide you information directly in your system or indirectly externally to, let's say, collaborate more on the day-to-day. So all of that it depends on the company. So Management Reporter. So when you talk about Management Reporter, it's what used to be called FRX before. Great tool, love it. A management report is not a report writer to do operational reports. It is a tool to do financial reports, balance sheets, cash flow, profit and loss, etc. So I'll repeat it. What used to be FRX, which is now Management Reporter, and I'll say it in a different manner, but I'm going to say the same thing, is a tool for financial reports. Examples: cash flow, balance sheets, profit and loss, and some other reports. And it is not, and I'll repeat, not a tool for operational reports. With that said, it's a tool that's based on hierarchies, tree hierarchies. It's a tool that allows you to consolidate. It's a tool that on the financial statements, financial report aspect of this does provide or complements your out-of-the-box reports and how also even your chart of accounts. So Management Reporter also allows you not only to do these reports, but quarterlies versus budgets. You can do financial statements by departments, by revenue product line, by cost centers, by subsidiaries, by countries. It's multi-currency, et cetera, Very powerful tool. It is not that technical. It does require a quick install. I think it's installed in I think between 3 to 6 hours, if I'm not mistaken, of NAV. It varies by the version you're in, and if there's some errors that that a consultant may get in the process because of setup in the ERP or service packs that are not installed, et cetera. So, but it's the most technical part is that outside of that, it's a tool where we have a lot of client functional super users. That they learn it and they do their own reports or variations of complex reports. So let's talk English here. What's a functional super user? Internal. That means it could be typically companies have within their accounting department. This person that's very good in finance is also very good in technology, and they like to work with systems, and they're almost like an internal consultant. And they're able to do reports and design and support and teach other team members. So we get a lot of super users. They may be a supervisor. I've had cases where it's the controller who, let's say, rolls up their sleeves and does this. We have cases where it's a staff accountant. So it's really not dictated by position. It's more dictated by accounting knowledge and by, let's say, technology friendliness. We've had people in accounting that have never had an education in IT, and they learn technology. They learn it with time within the company, and then all of a sudden they know more than the MIS person in a company. So this is something that you can definitely have a super user. You can do reports. It is pretty friendly, and it's just for financial reporting, and it's for free. One thing I will let you know, with the roadmap, our experience, what we're reading through the line, Microsoft has been phasing out report writer in NAV, not in AX and GP yet, in NAV. Why? Because they're then rebuilding or building other tools in SSRS and in Power BI to do this. And they're a little bit more advanced in doing this in NAV than actually GP and AX and Solomon, the other ERPs. So that's the reason why. So at this point, definitely you can use Report Writer. Still a very valid tool. A lot of customers use it. But if you're going to put money in a report, moving forward, you need to take a look at 2-3 years from now. So it is a personal decision. We've also had cases where Microsoft in a roadmap says, hey, we're adding this 3 months from now. Hey, we're wiping this 6 months from now, and something happens and it never happens, right? So the best we can do is read the market, be current in everything that's happening. It comes out, work with it, and try to make the best informed decisions as possible. Fortunately, I have a backup generator here, and I'm back online. Again, apologies. My electricity went off. So as I was saying, some of you have different ROIs. For example, mobility. So if some of you want reports on mobility or want some type of functionality, let's say to approve purchase orders while you're traveling on business, or and any sort of, or you have people, your CFO wants to, and you're in retail, and he wants to take a look at how the stores performed the night before in order in the morning to make a decision, or you're a distribution warehouse manager and you want to see key performance indicators on amount of orders, boxes, etc. You need to pick the next day in case you need to call people in, or for have people do overtime, or make sure that you have enough trucks the next day to deliver. I mean, there is something personal about these tools and the road that you're definitely going to take. SSRS reports, now it starts getting a lot more interesting again. If you know, some people have dialed in during their training. There's a lot of text here. Why? Because this presentation training PowerPoint has evolved, as I stated early on, it's evolving more into a white paper from Optimus than a presentation. So instead of doing 10 slides on something or having very high level points, we decided to put detail so you can forward this internally or you can request it from us so you can digest it later. So all this text is on purpose, and then there's valid information that, you know, when you have 5 points on a PowerPoint you may not say, but later on you do this. So SQL reporting reports, my understanding, I forgot the count now. I know Dynamics NAV has, I'm not sure if it already hit 300 reports once you start adding Power BI content packs or somewhere up in the 400 reports. I really lost track of it. And then these reports come in back and forth depending if it's SQL 2012, 2016, et cetera, et cetera. So SQL 2012 has been the most mature right now in the SSRS for Dynamics, but we're installing now a lot of 2016. A lot of the reports have already been migrated over there. So, you know, we'll be talking about 2012 and 2016 because, again, a lot of you are in different versions of NAV and you're in different versions of SSRS. So if you see something mentioning an older version of a product, it's not that we're doing this with older technology. As we're trying to do this representing our client base as much as possible. So SSRS reports, they're very we can say graphical. They're also paginated. Jet Reports is third party. It's one of the most, it's also an outside. So SSRS, it's outside. Jet Reports is outside. I did want to mention this, but it does have a cost to it. And with what Power BI and with what SSRS have brought in the table with NAV 2017, SQL Server 2016, it's making Jet Reports less and less useful. And what we're going to see moving forward is what you're going to have in NAV with SSRS and Power BI and Excel cubes, right? We will be talking about Excel, which is also for free, and it's also additional reports and in there. So within NAV. So we're going to talk about Power BI also, as we mentioned. It's more graphical. There's a content pack, something that happened now with the newer versions of all of the Dynamics ERPs, and a new announcement by Microsoft some months ago, which we also posted in our blog. Please, I also want to mention that we keep on putting up articles and updates on all of this and other items within Dynamics and Microsoft in our blog. So you can also use our blog as a data source, because unfortunately what you're seeing here is not centralized. So Power BI, something that happened with Power BI is until recently it was only cloud-based. Now there's an on-premise version. So what you knew about Power BI only being in the cloud, that's changed. There's also an on-premise version. And Microsoft, and actually we are implementing that right now, at least on GP that I know of. I don't know if in NAV we're implementing it on other customers. We've been implementing in the latest versions. We started implementing the Power BI reports that are within GP now or on-premise. So again, I said within and out, right? And as I mentioned at the beginning, it does get confusing, and some of these are hybrid, and some of these are hybrid temporarily, and some of these will be hybrid forever. So Power BI, as of the newest versions, NAV 2017, there's also Power BI on premise, and some reports already included within Dynamics NAV 2017. So deep diving a little bit more on SQL reporting services. Their paginated reports are available, mobile reports, and there's also a web portal where you can
consume the reports. I'm going to say the word consume. And I do have a slide in the future that I'll talk about what's creation and what's consumption within reporting. And that applies to all the tools here. So for free, right? I mean, for free, no, you're paying maintenance. You buy SQL Server, you buy NAV. So you bought it, let's put it that way. On the paginated reports, what we refer to as paginated reports, and I have more information in future and following up slides. I'm just not going to do each one of them. But paginated reports, you know, it's your rows, your columns, multi-pages, etc. You can also, in your paginated reports, like you see here, you can have graphics and what I talk about, color visualization, what's good and what's bad, what's kosher, what's not, right? So, you know, you can have paginated reports with graphs on it. Recently, we did in Power BI for a utility in the Caribbean running Dynamics. We did some SSRS reports with some graphics included in there, and actually the users loved it because it also helped provide a different visualization of the data. But again, an example of a paginated report where you have your rows and columns, but you also have your graphs. Mobile reports, there's a word in mobility, and I'm going to circle it here, so I'm grabbing my little pen. There's a word that's called responsive. Responsive, I know some of you know it, means that wherever you see or you visualize something in a report, in a website, in social media, it'll respond to the screen size. So think about screen size. You know, an iPhone 5 is smaller than an iPhone 7 Plus, right? Androids have different sizes. Samsung has different sizes. Tablets have different sizes and operating systems. So it doesn't matter. A Surface has different versions of it and sizes also. So it doesn't matter where you run a report or see a web page, see a web portal, etc., it'll be responsive. So SSRS and Power BI are both responsive. So I'm erasing my drawings and going to the next page. Here's a little bit of a roadmap, right, of where we've seen SQL Server progressing. So you can take a look at the past. Most of you right now are either here in 2012 or are in the process of upgrading or have upgraded to 2016 or will be installing 2016, right? So what happened in the last version, SharePoint enhancements, which we can also refer as the web portals of what we discussed. So sometimes we hear people saying SharePoint and web portal. A lot of times it's the same thing, right? SharePoint is a web portal, and there are web portals that are not necessarily SharePoint. That's a way of taking a look at this. And enhancement in 2016, you'll see a lot of new changes. New web portal functionality. HTML5 makes it responsive. So you'll see less SharePoint and more HTML5 because of the responsiveness. Power BI integration, so that means SQL Server is integrated with Power BI. And remember, I mentioned earlier today that there's an on-premise Power BI that you don't need to run all of Power BI on the cloud now. This is where it's coming from, right? So we did mention HTML5 again, the web portal, and you know, new mobile reports, KPIs, and the regular performance that you also see in SQL Server. This week, and I think they're on the call, we had a client who was looking at SQL Server. As an FYI, there is a SQL Server runtime version for NAV. You can only use that on NAV. It's a lot cheaper than buying the one outside of the regular one. Let's say it's kind of like an incentive for customers who invested in Dynamics. And if any of you need, because you were not an enhancement or anything, you need the newer version of SQL Server, Please note that with your Dynamics price list, you can get it, and I think it's like it's significantly lower than than getting the other version outside. So I'm erasing the drawings, and now I'm going to the next slide. So paginated reports, discussed it. Here's the detail, kind of like the white paper I told you about. Here's an example of paginated reports. This is a portal. You click into it, and then you would see the rows and columns reports, which you're used to. Power BI integration, already discussed that. This is a detail that goes into those slides again. And here's an example of such a report. Again, this is kind of like a white paper for you and your users, or anybody you want to forward this PowerPoint to. The web portal, discussed it, showed it to you guys in the roadmap. Here's some examples. It's I can't say this enough, responsive. I know some of you in the past have tried to have some of these reports and color coding and all of that on cell phones, and people don't like it because they can't see it well. Remember, SQL Server 2016 was recently launched. We're starting to see that now in 2017, right? So this is where responsiveness, I would say, mid 2016 forward is when really it has started becoming the age of responsiveness. Technology companies realize that if somebody can't see it well on a mobile device or on a tablet, if they can't zoom in, zoom out, if it doesn't adjust, people are not going to use your application, or they're not going to go to your social media site, or they're not going to go to your web page. So it's consumer driven, demand driven. So SSRS mobile reports, you can also drill down on them. And again, here's further explanation. I've mentioned most of this already. This is more for you to visualize later on. Additional information, again, more detail, specifically on SQL. Let me turn on the spotlight. On SQL 2016, we're not going to put much more information than the mention we already did earlier in 2012, because obviously the benefits and the technology, especially for NAV 2016 forward and GP 2015 forward, are going to be there, and AX also. Let me change my page. So this Optimus didn't write this section, right? It was written by Microsoft, if I'm not, yeah, it was written by Microsoft. But I liked it. This is part of your white paper that we're building for you guys, and it's Microsoft's sales pitch on why Power BI. Also, Adolfo is on vacation today. He'll be in the next Power BI dash NAV reporting training that we have in September. So he's the one that gets deeper into these slides. But I do want to mention to everybody here, if you want Adolfo to present and discuss this step by step, we can make ourselves available for you. And you have this here that, with your PowerPoint white paper, you can take a look at later on. This is a slide I told you earlier about that I would explain what's consumption and what's development, right? So I think pretty words for development are analyze and author. That's basically developing, customizing the report, writing it, authoring it, right? And there's typically would be the word, but everybody should and has to do some planning before starting to build reports. We just don't build reports to build them, especially now. Let me turn this on because I do want to make a point of this. Especially now, let me grab another color here. especially now that you have the option of doing reports in Excel and Excel cubes that Microsoft brings, Power BI desktop, which can be on-premise on the cloud. And again, you guys pay for this, mobile reports that comes from technology both based on Power BI and SQL Server, which you now know they coexist. Your in-house report writing tool, which is the report writer in NAV. So you have options on writing reports. So a management reporter, which, because of the roadmap, we didn't want to include in here. So you have options, but with options, you have questions. So it all starts here. And it all starts with your BP, your business process, and it also starts with your requirements, what finance wants, what inside or outside stakeholders want. So you may have reports that your bank requires, your board of directors, BOD, your management. So there's internal and external people who require reports. So whatever report writing tool or combination you use is first going to be based on this. Don't start writing reports because it's responsive, it's pretty, it has graphs. It starts here. Once you define this, then the appropriate decision for the piece over here, and let me change. So now the piece over here, this triggers this. What comes first, the chicken or the egg, right? That famous saying. After that, we decide, but also how you want to deliver it will help us understand what tool you want in here. So you analyze, you author it, it's based on requirements, you deliver it. You deliver it on a desktop. One of your users can run it. You deliver it via email and to an internal stakeholder. It could be a customer accounts receivable statement, which should be professional and pretty because it's your brand, right? And by the way, you can always promote in an invoice. You can advertise on an invoice if you do it right. So how you deliver it? Do you deliver it on the cloud? Do you deliver it on premise? Do you deliver it on email? Do you put it on a web portal where somebody can take a look and download? Do you have a SQL Server trigger, or do you have a dynamics alert that, based on a certain rule, let's say a customer goes over balance over their days, it automatically sends an alert and a trigger with a report. So how you're going to deliver it, and then finally how you're going to consume it. On a mobile device, on a PC, or does it have to be responsive, not, etc. Who's going to consume it, right? So we took a look at this and we're like, oh my God, before I just thought that when I did a project, I would just need to be worried about processes and setups and avoid customizations as much as possible. Is there an ISV out there that can do this process that the system doesn't do? But I'd say that's one of the biggest mistakes companies have done in the last 10 years and since ERP started. They've concentrated solely on the business process and on the customizations, and they've forgotten that the results of operations, they come out in reports and financial reports, right? And if you don't think about how you're going to visualize it, you're going to set up or you're going to implement a chart of accounts that may not give you the reports and the basis to later on run your company, make decisions, for example, based on cost or productivity and cost based on manufacturing or delivery or fulfillment, and then also report to your stakeholders, your board of directors, your internal managers, your banks, your investors, whatever. So I can't stress this enough. Especially with all, the good thing is there's options now, right? And we can get a lot more reports than before. We can get a lot more in a quicker, more efficient, or more graphical manner than before. That's the good news. The bad news is, how do I do it, right? And I think a lot of you are here because of that. So Power BI, we can spend a full day. By the way, some of you here have been to some of our Power BI non-dynamics, so Power BI without dynamics type of of training in the past. We do have that recorded. It's in our I mentioned you customer and us Optimus. It's in our knowledge base. I have an Excel sheet with an inventory of a lot of these courses, workshops. This one will be put up there also. So there will, by the end of next week, that will be in a knowledge base, the recording we're doing today. And we're also going to have that in the inventory Excel, so you can, you can send somebody a web link that they can double click in there and take a look at this training. You do need to be registered with Optimus, so please, if you want to see this training or the Power BI training workshop that we've done in the past, you can also do so. But again, this is very personal, so we don't mind doing a one-on-one with you, Adolfo, and or myself, and or Noé, or anybody else, Sanzio, etc. Power Apps, what is it? This is just kind of like a glossary for your information. I'm not going to dig deep into this, but Power BI is, let's say it's part of Power Apps now. Did want to mention Power BI, like the ERP, Active Directory, all this security is tied to roles, and the security and the reports are also tied to Active Directory from Microsoft. So on the security side, which is always a concern, always a question, and it's always very valid, right? You don't want to have a low, an entry level or staff employee be taking a look at the financials or reports you're providing the board of directors, right? So definitely, Active Directory, security through roles, through Dynamics, through SSRS, and it's pretty well, I'd say, pretty advanced, mature. I'm comfortable with the security to this date. I have not heard of any complaints, issues, or anything on the security. It's always a concern. Security always needs to be changed, but on the technology platform, I have not. We've received customers from other partners and other implementations with huge security issues that we've had to fix, right? But we really haven't found any major deficiencies in the technology behind and the architecture of the security. So as I'm talking, obviously, I'm going through slides so you can read, but again, you're going to go through this, and again, we're trying to give a 80-something PowerPoints here in a short workshop. But again, you have an opportunity to have separate sessions with us, a more personal one. Let's say that. Excel cubes, we've mentioned it. I like Excel cubes, Power BI, and SSRS more for operational reports and KPIs. It does work for financials, but when I want to separate financials can be looked at from a KPI, graphs, dashboard basis, but you can also take a look at it as a row and column report, right? So row and column, SSRS, and that's where Microsoft is investing a lot of money, and management reporter, which is facing out. So that's for the paginated, that's for the rows and columns aspect of the reports in financials, right? For paginated row column reports and operations, that's Excel cubes. Microsoft does provide Excel cubes and some Excel reports out of the box around primarily operations, which you can drill down, which has integration, or let's say you can have NAV feed and update it automatically, either on a portal or on somebody's PC under Active Directory. People love Excel, user-friendly. They can take those reports and manipulate them also. So we found that it's very usable there. And but Excel cubes is more for operations. SSRS, as I said, is financials and operations, both of them. Report Writer is for both of them, NAV Report Writer. Power BI, I would say, is more graphical. You can do paginated reports, but I find that Power BI manages both operations or financials, but it's better on the operations side. It doesn't mean that if it's better on the operations side, that every single time you have a financial report, it's going to be better to do it in SSRS or versus Power BI or versus Excel cubes. So, man, if I get talking about Office 365, there is an additional complexity level there. It's primarily technical, not user-friendly, but the integration to SQL reporting services, Power BI, and Dynamics, NAV, specifically 2016 and 2017, on the Office 365, it's getting better than it has been in the past, and in the past it's been pretty good. The analysis cubes, sometimes you can change cubes, and the word is can. You're available, please. It's hard to read this. Again, this is more like a white paper than anything else. And sorry for repeating myself around white paper than anything else every 10 slides, but we do have people coming in and out of these trainings, and we have had some people come in late, so I just want to set expectations to the new people who are coming in. So these, what's an Excel cube? So you have Excel reports with or without cubes. The cube one is Microsoft built a business intelligence cube. So think about a Rubik's cube of information where you can slice and dice information, where you can visualize the same information in that cube or from your environment with different colors or different combinations, right? So it's about combinations. It's about slicing and dicing information, and you know it does have graphics in it, and it feeds out of Dynamics. Please note, if you're going to run cubes, and SSRS reports, we highly recommend that you have a separate server for this, and we say that because even though you may physical server, it doesn't have to be a huge server, it could be a pretty cheap server, but we found throughout different versions of Dynamics and different Dynamics versions, so that means NAVGP, Solomon AX, and that also means, depending on your ERP, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 2013, 15, 16, 17, 18, right? GP is launching 18 pretty soon. There's different scenarios that are not even documented or out there, or even Microsoft support has been able to identify. So with a lot of pain and trial and error and experience and troubleshooting with clients, and most of these clients we've inherited, is we found that even though they may have SQL reporting services reports or Excel cubes or different cubes running in a different virtual server in the same box, we found that virtual server technology and or SQL Server is not really respecting the load rules that customers are putting in there. The reason why, there's so many technologies embedded in this, nobody has been able to find, but everything has been, that I know of, multiple companies with multiple ERPs and multiple versions, and us, we've tried to find it, and it's different reasons, different solutions. So the easiest, the cheapest, the less painful one, and the one that affects performance the least in your server, is have a separate physical server for this type of advanced reporting. And this also includes chat reports, by the way, and Power BI, since Power BI does a lot of the data churning and analysis on the cloud, so what happens is you generate the report, right? You author it. If we go back to that PowerPoint, right, where we're running this terminology up here, where you author it, you customize the report, you analyze it. Yeah, it's better on a desktop by far, When you deliver, you can deliver it somewhere else, and you can consume it somewhere else. But when you run it, right, we've found that Power BI. I prefer running it on the cloud, even though you have an on-premise version right now, because that way, when you run at least Power BI out of Excel cubes, Jet reports, and SQL reporting services, you do have to run it on premise. So that would be a separate server. Cheaper, better, right? There's a saying, don't be penny wise and pound foolish, which typically we see it in the UK, England, and in the English Caribbean islands. Basically that, and Power BI, as I was saying, I would, at the present time, until this is more mature, if you're going to run Power BI on premise, run it on a separate physical server for your reporting. But if you're able to run the reports on the cloud and then bring them back down, right? So how Power BI works is with a desktop app, you design, you analyze, you author the report. When you run it, you send it up to the cloud, and it runs on Microsoft SQL Server in the cloud, and then they send the reports back for delivery and consumption, right? So with that said, I like that model. It's been working. There is some concern because of a gentleman called Donald Trump and the Patriot Act in the US in the past about data confidentiality. And if you're concerned that with your data being up on Microsoft's cloud, right, when you run these reports, let me know. If you do run a Power BI report, even though your server, Microsoft or Oracle, whoever may say, or Amazon may say, hey, the server is in Ireland or the server is in Brazil, most, over 50% of the time, from these big software manufacturing companies, they do backups of these data centers in different parts of the world. And what happens is sooner or later, your data is backed up in a US server. And that's where the Patriot Act and Donald Trump come in, and they say, well, the data was housed in a US server. I'm entitled to see that data. So if you're concerned about the cloud, then a lot of times I tell people avoid the bigger data centers. Try to find a more regional data center where you're guaranteed that there's no backups and other servers somewhere else. Business portal, KPIs. I mean, again, more information and more shots of reports. I remember doing demos of a lot of these reports back in the year 2012, 2013, and people were like, wow, everything's paginated, this and that. I can tell you this is basically the norm. I do want to say I use the word out of the box. When I say out of the box, it's not you press a button and you're getting this the way you like it. Remember, there's a phase called analyze and author. So when I say out of the box, is all the reports you're seeing here are basically out of the box, but you may want to see it differently, right? You may want to see, instead of January to December, you may want to see it June to July, because you have a separate fiscal year, right? And a lot of times that's just a parameter in running the report, which is not customizations. Other times it's there may be some setup or even some customization involved in that report. So when I say out of the box, a lot of the reports are out of the box, but depending on your analysis and authoring, it will say which tool and how it is. So there is no magic button. Let me say this, and believe me, in January, February, I had this conversation with another customer in the US. There is no magic button that you do an install and then you get all the reports you've wanted, you need, or you will be wishing for 3 years from now. There is another process. If you're going to run out of the box reports, you run them, right, as they come out, and you can use them. You may have to analyze them differently, but if you want to take it a step further, there's always setups your super users can do. or it's just choosing a month or a date parameter in a report or in a graph, or just changing the type of graph, which a lot of our users do. For example, here, this is using Excel technology to do that, right? So pivot tables. It's basically that. So with that said, the presentation's finalized. This is version 1. It is a white paper. I'm willing to share it. It will change. Additionally to this, we will be adding and taking away pages. It's a living, breathing document. And with that said, I think I'm done. I'm going to open this up now for questions. So going over here to the chat, let me see where this is at. Okay, I think I found it. So if you can please start putting questions under your chat. Jenny or operations, if you guys can activate the chat so people can start sending in questions, I would really appreciate it. Right now, I'm not seeing any chat or any questions from anybody. I am writing a hello here, but it's only going to panelists. So Jenny, can you make me, or Rafael, can you guys make me presenter so I can send the chat to everybody? I'm only seeing here that I can send or visualize chats to the organizer and or organizers and panelists. Right now I'm set up as a panelist. Any questions?